Hey everybody, it's Chesky here. I just wanted to let you know that we had a couple issues with recording this episode, so please enjoy what we were able to salvage from it and have a great time.
Hello, and welcome to the Legendarium. We're a group of Legendarium fans here to complain about the main guys and make our own opinions known. Before we start, I'll tell any of our listeners to find us in the Legendarium Discord. That said, we're doing a bit of our own Wheel of Tangents today. I took a bunch of our own topics that might not be enough to make a full episode, and we're just going to talk about them until we get tired. I'm Hurinfan, and I'm joined here today by Kyptan,
Heyo.
Cesky
Hey, that's me.
and Eradandis. Did I pronounce everyone's names right?
The made-up name, so
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Okay. I was just always call you Chesky, so I don't know. What's that, Era?
It's a made-up name, so sure.
Okay. All right, so I think we'll just do this in order. So first question, everybody, how do you deal with your TBR?
Oh.
Very carefully. Well, there's three answers there. I don't deal with it. I add an insane amount of things to it, and then I obsess over it and worry that I'll never, ever finish it. But I like to have a broad variety. It helps guide my reading a tiny bit. But it's kind of just a big pile that I throw whatever book sounds good on, and then I read whatever I want out of there. So,
It's nice that dread that you'll never get to everything is kind of a universal emotion.
yes, it is. It is. So,
I view
How about you?
mine.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. I view mine
how
as.
about you, Kip?
I view mine as like a secondary bookstore that like I throw things in it that people recommend to me, and then when I'm looking for a new thing, I will treat that as like one of the places I can pull from. And hopefully I haven't forgotten why I added it in the first place. But I try not to feel too much regret over not getting to things there. Um, Although if something's been there for like 15 years, then I do feel a little bad about it.
Speaking of that, sometimes like I sort my TBR by like the last the last one that I haven't read that was placed there the earliest, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna read that because I just feel bad for it.
At some point, I'm going to have to come to terms that I'm not going to be completely caught up to date in the Star Wars universe anymore, and that's fine.
How about you, Era?
You should do it the way I do it. I set ridiculously high standards. Like, it's got to be recommended by several people. It's got to be, in an area that I'm already interested in. Otherwise, it's never on my TBR to begin with. So I go the exact opposite route of you guys. Like, I think I have 3 books right now on my TBR, and that's it.
And even that's high for you, right?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot.
I was looking at mine, and I think when I started doing a purge of mine just the last couple of days, and it started at over 1,300 books on the list, and I've got it down to almost 1,000. I set higher standards for it, but yeah,
That's not a TBR list. That's like
It's a library.
Throwing darts at a board.
Well,
Exactly.
It's more commonly referred to as like a TBR pile or mountain or, like
Range.
disaster.
Mountain range.
I kind of go Chesky's route. I regularly just kind of look at best books to read, or they have those flow charts like, hey, if you like this, and I just add literally everything on the list.
Oh God.
Okay, I'm gonna read all of this. And
Hey, that's the way to
after I
go.
get several hundred on my TBR, I'm just like, okay, I go through them and I'm like, oh, I've never seen this book before in my life. I'm just gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete that. It works for me. When I'm choosing what to read next, I gotta just go and be like, I remember Chesky said that was good. I guess I'll do that next. Or, I don't know. That's what I do.
I wish that Goodreads had a more reliable rating system / user base, because then I could sort by stars and it would mean something. But as Goodreads currently exists, that means nothing.
Goodreads is good for adding books to your TBR.
Now, I have to say this. Well, I'll say this in terms of just in terms of adding to the TBR, I'll plug the Discord. I've gotten better recommended books through the Discord channel than I have through any other mechanism. Even a book that, for example, Chesky just the other day told me, this is a really, really terrible book, but you should try it.
Oh, see?
And I tried it, and I promise you, Chesky's 100% right. It was a terrible, terrible book. But it's I do like the Discord community in terms of actually getting a wider variety of books. I've already read books I'd never even contemplated reading. Just by going onto
the Discord gave me Jade City. The Discord gave me Sword of Kaigen. The Discord gave me A Memory Called Empire.
Hey.
Oh, come on. Don't put Memory of Empire on the list. You hated the other two.
The Discord gave you the Rook.
Yes. Well, I gave you the Rook. My taste is impeccable. Other people on the server have questionable values.
Hey, I warned Eradandis before he started reading it that it was a bad, bad book.
Oh,
and that he would be.
He said 0 out of 10.
Yeah,
he did.
Said 0 out of 10.
Yes, you did. You did.
What book was it?
I'll DM you later.
The book was.
Okay.
Oh, you can tell him. I don't care.
And whoever recommended the Ritualist, I have forgotten your name, and that is a good thing, because then I cannot blame you forever.
What? The library at Mount Char. I like that book, and that was recommended through.
Excellent
through
book.
That's on my TBR.
That's an awesome one.
It's
Yeah.
a really good book.
Sword of Kaigen's great. So, should we?
Moving on.
Should we move past TBR?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I think
right.
that's
So,
good.
so our next topic is what are your auto-buy authors? I'll start first and say that I have none. There's not a single author that I will read anything that they release just because I like them. Even my favorite author, he's released a couple books that I have no interest in. And Brandon Sanderson's up there, but I don't really like his YI stuff, so I'm not going to read that. I'm not interested in his middle grade stuff, so I'm not going to buy that. But how about you, Chesky?
Well, yes. The main ones would be like you just mentioned, Sanderson. I do buy, everything that he writes. I enjoy it all. Youth, middle grade, adult, it's all fun to me to read. I think I'd put Jim Butcher on that list as well. I've enjoyed everything that he's written, and I always buy the latest Dresden when it comes out. So he's probably there. And Naomi Novik's, not short stories, but her standalones I've really been liking. And so I've kind of bought every one of them just expecting I'll like it. I didn't quite enjoy her main series, but when I go back and read it again, hopefully I'll like it more. So.
Have you read her newest one?
It's in the pile. So when I get to it, I'll get to it. There's so many other books there are so many other books I had to read.
It's on the pile. It's not auto-buy.
Yeah, that's a good point, Aaron.
Well, I'm going to buy it. I just haven't bought it yet.
It's not. She's not auto-buy then. She's not auto-buy yet. Nope.
Well, she's close then. How about that?
Okay, I'll take that.
Aaron, how about you?
Meanwhile, I have one author, one and a half authors, I'll say. So Stephen Brust, who I've talked about incessantly on Discord. I love him. I've loved him my whole life. He he writes. Well, he's written the Jurig novels. They're all about 200 to 300 pages, pretty short, about a human assassin in an elven empire. It's pretty interesting. Said N.K. Jemisin, she's a heavy writer. Love her, but I have to be in the right mood to read her.
Pretty heavy.
Have you read her Inheritance series?
I have it on my shelf. I haven't read it yet. But I
Okay, it's lighter than Broken Earth. It's lighter than Broken Earth, which is not not saying a lot, but
Trying to say it's not hard to be lighter than the Broken Earth.
Things lighter than the Broken Earth, the moon.
Mars, possibly a whole bunch of stars.
I've only ever read the Broken Earth, but I really like that. I'd like to read other stuff. Kip, have you read The City We Became?
I have not yet. I've bought it, but I haven't read it yet. I've been working on Green Team stuff and Rhythm of War.
Yeah, I need to get to that. I hear it's vaguely Lovecraftian, even though she hates Lovecraft.
Well, yeah, you can do unspeakable horrors while also remaining anti-racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Kip?
How about you, Kip? Looks like you have a long list.
Oh, I have so many because there's nothing I love more than to find an author that I trust and love, and then I can just auto buy their books, and there's no choice that needs to be made. It's just buy it and then enjoy it, and that's my favorite thing in an author. So I've got a couple current ones that I still do. So Charles Stross, Alistair Reynolds, those are two excellent sci-fi authors who always have fun ideas in their books. Then there's Tamara Pierce, which is, my number one comfort author. Brandon Sanderson, Max Gladstone.
Who had the over-under? I'm sorry. Who had the over-under on Tamara Pierce being mentioned?
I'm sorry. Vegas doesn't take those bets anymore.
Go ahead. Continue. I'm sorry.
Diane Duane, her Young Wizard series is excellent, and I look forward to every new installment. And then I have a couple dead authors on the list that I used to auto buy all of their books, but they're not making anymore. Ian M. Banks and Terry Pratchett. I've got a couple people that are up and coming, I'm starting to become auto buy on them. The notable one is N.K. Jemisin. And then there's some authors that I don't automatically buy all of their books anymore because they started to become a bit repetitive, and that's Ellie Modesitt, Philip Pullman, and Dan Brown. And then authors that I used to buy all of their books and then grew up and realized, no. So that's Orson Scott Card and J.K. Rowling.
I know some of those authors you listed. Could you tell me about a lot of these people? I don't know. I've heard Reynolds. I know Pierce. I know Sanderson. I know Gladstone. I know Banks and Pratchett and Jemisin, and of course Pullman, Brown, and Card and Rowling. But can you tell me about the other ones?
Okay, so Diane Duane is I best know her for her Young Wizard series, which is about a couple of kids in a suburb of New York City who discover that they are wizards and are tasked to be on the one service righting wrongs throughout the world.
So Diane Duane.
Two kids live in a suburb of New York City. They discover that they're wizards through a book, which is awesome. I love the book.
Check it out from
it's like a manual to how the universe works and the programming keys behind it to reprogram it with persuasion. That's how magic works in this universe, which is super fun. It's kind of like naming, but also with some harder magic elements of computer programming. Yeah, gravity's real, but if you have wizardry, you can alter its mechanics if you need to like travel to the moon or something.
Oh, like that Robert Foundry side.
Kind of. Except not nearly as like persistent. Like most wizardry is fairly temporary. Uh,
Gotcha.
yeah, not
Okay.
entirely, but mostly. It's fun. It's and it tackles a lot of issues that I care about, and does like one entire book is basically an homage to Burroughs if it wasn't so sexist, and his Mars series, which is pretty fantastic. And the other authors, Modesett, L.E. Modesett, wrote or is still writing, technically, the Recluse Saga, which takes place in a world where magic is based on chaos and order, and black mages are the good guys and white mages are the bad guys, but eventually you learn that both are kind of bad guys when they take things to extremes, and you should find a nice balance between them.
So I think the main moral of that is, yeah.
Yep. But it's like a 22 book series at this point that takes place over multiple thousand years. Um, but it's interesting in the fact that characters will be in rarely more than 2 books, never more than 4.
The Imager portfolio is not.
The
That's not
Imager
Recluse.
portfolio is not in Recluse. Though I've still auto-buyed on and read all of that. Um, that one started getting really repetitive for me.
There's only one exception in your portfolio, right? His standalones, I think, are actually really, really good. For Modesett, just to want to plug that in there. He's got like his 2 books, like his duologies or standalones are actually really, really good.
Yeah,
they are really good.
He's a technically very good author. He's a bit wordy for some people. He's a bit preachy for some people. Um, and his characters tend to philosophize a little bit too much for some people. So he's a hard recommendation to make, but I really enjoy his work. And I really enjoy, some people call it tedious, but I call it exacting. The level of detail that he brings to military logistics and economic issues that affect the civilizations and protagonists in his stories.
Yeah, you're
I
selling this
enjoy
on me
that.
hard. Yeah, I'm checking that out.
Yeah, it's a great one. Hurinfan, I think you'd like it.
Yep. But he has very different books, like the Magi and Scion of Sayador are like a 2-book series inside Recluse, and they're entirely unlike anything else in the series.
You know what, Hurinfan? You know what you might like is the Time Divers Dawn duology.
Okay, so next I want to talk about some non-Western fantasy. I've got a pretty long list, but I want to go last. So, Chesky, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I don't really read a ton of non-Western fantasy. That's pretty much the answer there for me. I've read a couple. They were good. I read. I think everybody else is saying stuff about Who Fears Death by Okorafor. I didn't really enjoy it. It was fine. It just wasn't for me. So I don't really read a ton. I do read, some Wuxia type stuff, but that's more just like on the fun and a chapter here, a chapter there. So that's
Um,
me.
I got a question about that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not clear what Wuxia is. So,
You
maybe for other people, including myself, could you explain
I
what
I don't really know what Wuxia really means either. I just
Eric, Kip, do you guys know?
I just classify it
I
as
know that it's where the D&D monk comes from. That's most of my knowledge.
I tend to think of Wuxia more as just like your typical like more Chinese influenced or Japanese Korean influenced type stories, or a lot of like cultivation type novels where they just go stronger and stronger. But
Yeah, it's it's fantasy that's tied into Chinese mythology.
So like Dragon Ball?
Yeah, or like
Technically,
or
yeah.
like
Okay.
martial heroes. It's a genre of Chinese fiction, usually about martial artists or some type of
It's like Crouching Tiger.
martial skill. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep. And Mulan,
that would
the original Mulan,
that would probably count.
not the Disney. Yeah.
Okay, Kip, how about you?
So I was questioning if Isabel Allende was non-Western enough because she incorporates elements of Incan and Mayan civilization into her work.
I would say
Uh,
yes.
but I also put Nadima Okorafor because I actually haven't read any of her fantasy, but I did really enjoy her Binti science fiction series, which is at least partially set in Africa,
I like Binti a lot.
also partially set in space.
Space Africa.
I mean, yeah.
Now, Binti's cool. It's really unique too. I like all the crazy hair stuff and the aliens. Yeah, great.
Mm,
Highly recommended.
hmm
How about you, Era?
So, just using what Kip said as a segue, I have read one of Corafor's books, Who Fears Death. Um, it's a brutal book. It's incredible. It's so it takes place in like a post-apocalyptic Sudan, and there's the light-skinned people, the Nuru, and there's the dark-skinned, I cannot pronounce it, OKK, and there's protagonist is born out of rape. Um, Obviously the Nuru, and her name is, I'm gonna mispronounce it if I have it written down, Onye Sonu, and that's that world's version of Who Fears Death. That's her name, and she's a magic user, and she's gonna go get revenge on her. And it's an amazing, amazing story. If you haven't read it, read it. That's all I can say. The other book, I don't know whether you're going to count this as Western or not Western. It's from an Israeli author, The World of the End by Ophir Touche. And it was originally written in Hebrew. It's translated in English. I did not know it was originally written in Hebrew because the English translation is so well done. But it involves the protagonist is a man who ends things. He ends books. He ends things that people have difficulty ending. And he's struggling because his wife has died and he really misses her. So he commits suicide. And then he finds out there's a whole other world, a technologically advanced world of the dead, and kind of how that world of the dead intermixes with the real world. And it's overall it's a quirky, fun book, but it also deals with some Jewish theology stuff, since in Judaism, one of the really, really big no-nos is to commit suicide. So it explores all of that, and it's a fantastic, wonderful book. You should give it a try if you haven't.
Yeah, you sold me on that. What's it called again?
The World of the End.
Who's the author?
Ophir, Ofir, Touche, as in touche, Gafla, Gafla. And the translator is Mitch Ginsburg.
He's Israeli.
Israeli. So the author's Israeli.
Cool. Yeah, I'd
I
like
don't
to read
want to say
more.
anything else because I don't want to spoil it. It's a really good book.
I'll
Yeah, I'd
throw it
like to
on
read
my
more
pile.
Jewish fantasy. Okay, so my books. Sword of Kaigen. Kip, don't say anything. Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. And Sputnik Lovers by Haruki Murakami. So have any of you ever read Murakami?
No.
It's magical realism. It's basically our world, but like weird things are happening and like you can't really properly explain it. It's wonderful. I love his stuff. Uh,
Allende is magical realism too. She's one of the real originals of the genre.
so I love his stuff except for his most famous Norwegian Wood. That one's garbage. Don't even bother. Um, let's see, Nausicaa, the manga. If you ever seen Nausicaa, the anime, it's great, and the manga is much better. And I think I've talked about it here before. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Rage of Dragons. I'm sure most people know about this. It's been, the big new popular fantasy. I love Rage of Dragons. It's a bit power up fantasy and Tale of Revenge. Binti, we've always talked about that already. This is sci-fi, but The Three Body Problem was one of
Mm.
the finest modern sci-fi books I've ever read.
I was trying hard not to mention her because she's so sci-fi.
City
Excellent author, though.
mm, City of Brass is a um, let's see, it's kind of like Genie, and it's set in the Middle East. I think it's mostly Muslim mythology inspired. It's not great, but I like it. I think it gets better with each book. And the Black Company. So the Black Company, the first three books are definitely Western, but after the first three books, they head to more African and more Indian inspired areas. And I think the uh, or second part, second and third parts of Black Company are actually better than the first three.
If we're going to count Black Company as non-Western, then Black Company is one of the finest fantasy series of all time, in my opinion. It kind of gets up and down in the later books, but I mean,
I'm
once you
not
get past
counting
books
it as
1 2 3,
non-Western.
like this, huh?
I'm not counting it as non-Western.
I mean, the books of the South and the books of the Glittering Caves are most definitely non-Western.
Hmm.
Well,
I,
I thought when we were talking about non-Western that it came from a non-Western author,
that's
not
what I
necessarily
thought too.
Yeah,
non-Western.
that's what I was going for.
Well, okay. I guess we can count that then. Everyone ignore my Black Company part, except for the part where Eric comes in and says it's fantastic, because it is.
Great series. I wouldn't call him non-Western.
Well, I mean, Rage of Dragons is written by a Canadian.
That counts, fine, but
I,
that's
I,
Western.
I
Or
I'm gonna
Canada
hold
not part
back
of the
thoughts
West?
about Rage of Dragons.
Um, I don't know where the rest of these authors come from, except for Murakami Haruki, and he's Japanese, of course. So other ones that I haven't personally read, but I heard are good, is Kafka on the Shore by Murakami Haruki. Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. The Wind Up Girl by some name I can't pronounce. Paglio Lubibici. Uh,
Paulo.
Paolo. Black Leopard and Red Wolf by I forgot. I'm sorry. And Under Heaven from Guy Gabriel K, who's I guess disqualified because he's Canadian. But Grace of Kings is also by an American, I think. Ken Liu, I believe, is American.
I
All
don't know.
right. Great. Next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that the Dandelion Dynasty, that's the Ken Liu series, the Grace of Kings. I'm gonna count it. At least I would count it because basically it's historical fiction. It's a retelling of the rise of the Han Dynasty from ancient China. So he changes the name, so like the main character's name is not Liu Bang, which is the actual person in real history. But I mean, if you like historical fiction, it's worth a read.
Oh, how could I forget the Poppy War too? I believe
I don't
Ken
know.
Liu is actually born in China, so I guess he counts. And so does R.F. Kuang, who wrote the Poppy War. Yeah. So well, most people probably have heard the Poppy War, but it's really dark stuff. Uh, Largely based on the First and Second Sino-Japanese Wars. So if you know anything about those, you know how brutally dark it can get. But those are fantastic. I'm on book three, and I think I like it the most. So I recommend that as well. Shall we move on?
Yes.
All right. What are your favorite worlds?
Ooh.
Can I go first?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to choose Amber because you can make up any world you want to and go anywhere you want. Because that's the whole theory of Amber is that there's one real world Amber, and then you can have whatever Shadow Earths you want in any combination you want. And so I'll choose Amber number one because you can live anywhere you want. The second one is Middle Earth because I mean Tolkien just painted such a vivid picture in my mind. It's just that I feel like I can just take a plane and go there tomorrow. So those are my two.
Chesky?
Well, I think that Amber is somewhat of a cop-out answer, but I'll allow it. But my favorite worlds to read about, obviously I love the Cosmere. Everyone in there I feel is just written well. But I also kind of like the premise of the Hollows series by Kim Harrison, and then the Kate Daniels world. Shoot, I don't remember the author off the top of my head. Oh well, you'll find it somewhere. It's online everywhere. They're both fun. The Hollows follows where like there was a plague that wiped out. It was a genetically modified tomato, and it killed like a bunch of humans, but all of the non-human races, werewolves, vampires, witches, they all were immune to it, and so they kind of had to step out of the shadows. It's a fun series.
Sounds
And
very
then,
grounded.
yeah, it's fun, and a lot of humans are afraid of tomato-based products because that's kind of what started it. So
Yeah,
like
who
they're all
wouldn't be?
afraid of pizza and stuff like that. So it's quite funny part of it. But the Kate Daniels world is it's based on the idea that magic and technology are on a pendulum, and we pushed magic too hard back in the Middle Ages, and so it swung to technology. And now we push technology so hard it's swinging back to magic. And so, some days technology works and some days magic works, but you never know what's going to happen or when it's going to shift. And so it's fun that way. I really enjoy reading it. It was a lot of fun.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why would you want to live on that world? And
Well,
why
no,
would you want to live in the Cosmere? Because Scadrial does not sound like a fun place to
no,
live.
no.
Or
This
Shard
says this
does
says
not sound like a fun place to live.
favorite worlds, not favorite worlds to live in.
I
Because
mean, I'm just saying that like it doesn't sound like a fun place to. Anyways,
maybe not a fun place
good
to
book,
live,
but not a fun place.
but a fun place to read
You know
about.
what? This world isn't looking great right now. So I don't like living in my house.
I keep on expecting to wake up and have it be game over. Start a new game.
It was all a dream. We all woke up and there was no pandemic. So, no, those are mine. So,
Kip?
I've got a bunch.
Of course.
Okay, so one of my favorite worlds is The Culture from Ian Banks's Culture series, which is like this incredibly liberated space utopia, uh, where you can do basically anything you want as long as your resource requirements aren't too extreme and you don't infringe on anyone else's consent. And you really have to read it to see why I'd love to live there. But also, every human has like a drug cornucopia in their head that they can express at will to like make one of many hundreds of different drugs, including ones that help you be better at board games. uh, I like the Terra Ignota world because I love worlds that have societies divided by, and this is another reason I love the culture, that have societies divided by ethical choices or philosophical frameworks of purpose, of goals. The culture has like a variety, like a whole spectrum of pacifistic cultures that have broken off from it, and the Terra Ignota world has like one culture that's based on finding the limits of human excellence, and another one that's based on finding the limits of human innovation, and another one that's based on like celebrating heritage and culture, another that's focused on finding like the secrets of the human mind, uh, another that's all about like the bonds between people. And I really think that Terra Ignota makes it work, makes all of these different uh, hives, it calls them, coexist in a way which a lot of like dystopian future novels can only dream of. Uh, the Revelation Space Universe by Alistair Reynolds is like a dark, gritty, grimy kind of cyberpunk interstellar future where humanity had a golden age, and then a plague came and devoured basically every piece of like higher nanotech that got in that came into contact with it. And like there's only a few like hermetically sealed environments that have like isolated themselves from the rest of the galaxy that still maintain uh like that level of technology, and everyone else is kind of just like, well, we got to live in like this perpetual plague environment now and not put any more nanotech inside our skulls because that's lethal now. N.K. Jemison's 100,000 Kingdoms. I can't spoil it, but I love the things that she does with divinity and gods in that system, and specifically portfolios of like divine domains and how those influence the gods and how uh, it affects the universe. And then, of course, the Cosmere. I don't need to say anything about that.
Cool.
When you're talking about 100,000 Kingdoms, it sounds a little bit like the crap sequence, a little bit in terms of the world setup. Is that a good
I
analogy or
would
not?
I would not compare the two. I really
Okay.
wouldn't.
Okay.
Um, no, it's not like the craft sequence.
So the craft sequence that you recommended to me, Kieran, I've fallen in love with that series completely.
The craft sequence has like a multitude of gods.
Yep.
100,000 Kingdoms has like three.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair.
Well, Kip recommended it to me, so I guess Kip is your recommendation, Granddaddy.
Please never say that again.
Okay, Daddy.
Oh, great.
All right, I guess I'll say mine. I love the big ones. I like Roshar. I like Middle Earth. I like Wu, which is the Malazan world. We've already talked about craft sequence, but I really like the Books of Babel. Has anyone here read those? I know Chesky has.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, the Books of Babel. So we don't really know much about the world outside of Babel, but Babel's like the tower from the uh,
The
Abrahamic
story.
religion story. Yeah, and it's just this giant pillar, and it's filled with so many layers and so many hundreds of thousands of people, and each area is just a very distinct world in itself, and the book travels around those. It's got like airships, and it's got it's it's really 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 cool. I
Hmm.
love it.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Oh, I have one to add.
okay, go ahead.
Eon by Greg Bear. Um,
Oh, that's wonderful. Good
where
choice.
Yeah, where there's this artifact that comes to Earth called, and they call it the Dandelion. Um, and it's an asteroid that's been hollowed out and filled with a succession of chambers. Except in the last chamber, they find basically just like this uh, ribbon going down the central axis, and it goes forever. Like it doesn't seem to be contained like within the asteroid. It's like this extra spatial space that just goes on forever and ever. Um, and down the center of it is the flaw, um, which is like a weird compression of space-time or something. And within this like seventh chamber or whatever is contained potential wormhole points for basically every possible world and universe.
Just can you call that a
And
cheat
you can
sheet?
like We're gonna have to put spoilers for Eon, but that's the setup.
I'll also call that a cop out then. Yes.
I mean, no, but like
No,
like
but yes.
along the flaw are like also like cities, and also it's much harder to find a particular world and time than you might think it is.
Okay.
But yes, potential cop out, which is Era and I thinking alike, which is
More common than you think. More common than you think.
wishes. So
No, but I really do love the idea of like a floating space habitat that travels through time and space.
And it's a really good book too.
And it's a good book.
all right, well I'll get
Cool.
back to my list.
That's
So I already talked about it, Naushka. So the world is the humans are kind of forced into living into really small groups, and they're constantly being kind of pushed into uninhabitable areas, and they have to live on the fringes of society because there's this thing called the decaying forest that is just taking over the world. And the decaying forest was created from a war that was like 1,000 years earlier. And the decaying forest is just filled with gigantic bugs, and they look so cool. And so the humans who are not living in the forest, of course, because they can't, are constantly fighting each other for land and resources, and it's a really, really interesting world. I love it. Hyperion. I love Hyperion. I love the Hyperion world.
Good choice. Good
The lore is
choice.
great.
Excellent
All
world.
the
Good choice.
planets are really cool. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Discworld, we've talked about it here. Discworld's amazing.
Yeah.
It's both unique and a parody of really all fantasy. I mean,
Discworld is excellent. Also, Ringworld.
Ringworld. I only read one, but yeah, I like that. The Locked Tomb, which are the Hair of the Ninth and what's the first one? Gideon the Ninth. Gideon the Ninth and Hair of the Ninth world.
yeah.
Gideon the Ninth. Yep.
It's necromancers in space, and that's just way too cool. So if that, I mean, I think anybody who's read it was sold on the idea that it's necromancers in space, and that's exactly why I read it because it's just such a cool idea. And last,
I was sold that it was a lesbian love story.
okay, well, who's surprised? And lastly, I don't think it's particularly well written, but I love it and I love the world. It's a Arcane Ascension series.
Yeah, it's fun.
Chesky's probably read that, yeah.
Yep, I have, yeah.
So the world is kind of like the author is like, okay, well, I love JRPGs, and how the hell would you explain JRPGs in a way that makes any sense whatsoever? So there is a magical tower, and the tower creates monsters, and the monsters drop items, and from those items you make magical powers, and it's really cool. It feels like
there's multiple towers though. It's not just one.
Yes,
tower.
sorry, you're right. But in the first book, it's just one tower.
Yeah.
And like sometimes there's people inside the tower, and they're controlling things, and I don't know, I love it. I can't wait for book 3.
Yeah, they're fun, quick little reads.
It has some characters Kip might like as well, even though you'd probably hate
We've
the
got
series.
5 minutes.
Okay, well, should we do one more, or should we wrap it up then?
Let's do some rapid fire.
like the
I'd rather we just do a second episode. We could
Okay.
I went for a second one, yeah.
Yeah, because I want to hear everyone talk about why they disliked First Law.
should we just give that as a teaser for
So yeah, listeners, we're not going to talk about it today, but one of the topics was a series you disliked that everybody seemed to love, and I wrote First Law, Chesky wrote First Law, Kip wrote a few, but one of them was First Law, and then Eradandis wrote First Law, and 2 more.
So apparently it's actually a bad book that just a couple people seem to like. We have a consensus. 4 out of 4 agree. Not that good.
I was most looking forward to tropes, but yeah, I think that'll be a good episode for next time.
Yeah, last summer everyone was like, Kip, you got to read First Law. Kip, you got to read First Law. Then I read First Law and I was like, this is what you guys were all going crazy about?
Okay, save it for next time.
Save it for next time.
All right, so yeah, this has been the Legendarium Green Team. Thanks for listening. Hit us up on Discord and all that. If you guys got complaints about what we said, please tell us, because I'm sure there are plenty. I have some. I guess that's all. Let's say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Time Divers Dawn.
Which is
Dawn.
the morning of.
That sounded like a very different book for a second.
Yeah, it's like.
Well, okay.
Who's that homoerotic author you like, Kip?
Which one?
The one that writes the ridiculous stuff. The one
Chuck Tingle.
Yes,
Tingle.
Chuck Tingle. The one that I know about. Sorry, one more time.
Not
Era.
Orson Scott Card. Okay.
Sorry, Era, one more time. What was that? The name of that?
Time Divers
I think Era is frozen.
Dawn.
Time Divers
Hello,
Dawn.
can you hear me?
Time
Yeah.
Dawn.
Divers
D-A-W-N.
D-O-N-G. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's Modasit.
I think we.
Yeah, that's modest.
I think we can move on.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's-
I hope whoever edits this left it in.